Okay, so this is my book report. Just kidding. This is my honest review of the book The Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. It's the first book of the Empyrean series. This book has been very hyped all over TikTok, and I'm currently in the process of reading the second book, so I'm going to review that one as well once I'm done. Now, the story follows a 20-year-old girl named Violet. Her mother is a general of a military college that Violet is about to attend her first year in. She's supposed to join the scribe quadrant, something she prepared for most of her life, which is basically documenting information and preserving the history of the kingdom of Bascaith, which I have no idea if I'm saying it right. This quadrant is pretty chill, nothing too life risky. It's mostly dealing with books and data, and their main philosophy is that knowledge is power. Her dad was also a scribe, and that was the path that she thought she was going to follow. But her mom, her sister, and brother are all dragon riders. And her mother sort of forced her against her will to join the rider quadrant to continue the family legacy. Now, this quadrant is considered the most dangerous one because not many survive the first school year, let alone the first day. This quadrant is in charge of fighting and protecting the kingdom. And Violet doesn't really think that she has what it takes to survive because she's not as athletic as her brother or sister. And when she was a child, she suffered from some sort of illness that made her very weak and fragile. She would often break her bones and constantly get mended. And as a rider, you have to endure a lot of physical challenges to test your abilities to become a good dragon rider. And her body is simply not built for it. So Violet, understandably so, is scared for her life because to become a dragon rider, she must go through many challenges that the chances of her surviving them are slim at best. Now, just to give you a heads up, I am going to talk about some plot points and the book ending. So spoilers ahead, you've been warned. So here are my thoughts on Violet, the main character. Violet is very bright and intellectual. She has this great memory for reciting a lot of things that she read over the years. She's very compassionate and kind. Now, all those things are great attributes for a main character and make you as a reader want to root for said character. But the book singles out Violet from everyone else by making her seem much more special than everyone because the other characters are just not as smart as her or as kind as her. And I don't think compassion towards other people should be considered a special trait. It should be a basic human ability, but I could be wrong. Or if anyone else in the book would be well informed or read a lot of books like her, they would be able to make insightful comments as well. But Violet is always the one asking the smartest questions than everyone else. And it can feel sometimes like the chosen one trope where you have this character that you know is different from the rest. But in reality, this character is just a well-educated, decent human and nothing more. But don't get me wrong, I'm still rooting for her. I just need more justification as to why she's so special. But that's just my opinion, so don't come at me. What I do love about Violet is that she had to work really hard. She had to train. She had to learn to combat. She had to learn how to fly a dragon. And I love that she really had to earn her power instead of it just being handed to her. And I love how she starts as this girl with all the odds against her, and she somehow survives against all of them, and she slowly but surely gets stronger throughout the book. Now, because Violet is the main character and also the one narrating the story, we, the readers, get to know what she feels and see everything through her eyes and her perspective. But it also makes the stakes not very high, because if she dies, there's no more book. There's no more story. So I always knew that Violet, no matter what, whatever challenge she had to face, whatever ledge she had to walk on metaphorically or literally, she wouldn't die because she had to make it all the way to the end. Other than Violet, there are many characters, but I'm just going to focus on two of them. In the writer quadrant, she meets her best friend Dane, who's on his second year, and he's her squad leader. She always had a crush on him, and now that she gets to be with him again, it sparks a lot of old feelings between them. And another character who is very important is Zayden. Now, this guy, you know right from the start that he's going to be a major love interest. And according to everyone that Violet's talked to, she hears that he very much wants her dead because her mom killed his parents as retribution for killing her son, Violet's brother. Now, a few years back, there was a rebellion, and the person who led the rebellion was his dad. And all the parents who took part in that rebellion were all executed. And all the kids of those parents were sent to the writer quadrant as a form of punishment. And much like Violet, they didn't have much of a choice about it. It was either you graduate or you die, which is a direct quote from the book cover. So when she meets Zayden for the first time, you get the sense that those two are going to be mortal enemies due to their history, or more like their parents' history. Okay, so let's talk about some of my predictions that came true and ones that didn't. First thing right off the bat, I predicted a love triangle situation between Violet, Zayden, and Dane. And I was kind of surprised that it didn't go that way. So my initial thoughts were Dane is the Jacob, the sensible best friend, and Zayden is the Edward, the not so healthy, dangerous choice. But the whole Dane and Violet thing fizzled out pretty quickly. More on that later. So their love wasn't really given any chance to blossom. But as far as romance, which plays a huge part in the book, the love story between her and Zayden, 3 words, oh my god, very steamy. If I have to give their romance a score from 1 to 10, 10 being steamy like Jamie and Claire from Outlander, I would definitely give it like an 8.5, which is really high, because I'm sorry, no one can really top off Jamie and Claire. And if you have read Outlander, you'll understand. I also like the fact that they were sort of mortal enemies and hating each other, except, not really, and had this raw sexual attraction. I love their banter and their flirtations with one another. Now, this book is marketed as adult fantasy because usually in a YA novel, the main love interest maybe gets to kiss at the end of the first book, and you have to wait to see the relationship evolve only in the second book if you're lucky, because sometimes it's even longer than that. Well, in this book, let's just say it's much more explicit, and things are moving quite quickly in the romance department, and I'm all for it. So no objections on my part. Now back to Dane, who may have started off as a good guy, but as the book progresses, he is slowly but surely turns almost to a villain towards the end of the book. At the beginning, it appears that he's protective of Violet and wants to save her from imminent death and tries to come up with an escape plan for her. And it seems really sweet at first, but it gets old super fast because every time Violet is faced with some sort of challenge or danger, he's always telling her there's no way she's going to make it or survive. She's just not strong enough, blah, 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 until Violet herself is annoyed with him and fed up with his incredible lack of faith in her. And he even tells him off in an epic way, because instead of being a good friend and believing in her, he's always the one telling her she can't do it. She's going to die. And he's also a very straight arrow kind of guy who always follows the rules, and made it clear to Violet on several occasions that he would not break the rules to save her or help her. He also does this creepy thing where he uses his power to read her mind without her consent, and even ends up sending her on a death mission at the end of the book. So I honestly don't think there's a way to redeem his character, and the friendship between him and Violet is pretty much dead. So Dane turned out to be not love triangle material and ruined my prediction, so more reasons to hate him, I guess. My predictions that did come true was that Violet will get chosen by the Black Dragon, which honestly wasn't that hard to predict because in the book everyone was hyping the Black Dragon so much about how he's the biggest, the most fierce, how he'll probably choose no one because no one is strong enough for him. So ultimately, he had to choose Violet because she was the most unlikely choice, but also the main character. At one point, I thought the Gold Dragon will choose her, and then she will later, once she gains more experience, she will get upgraded and eventually get the Black Dragon. But in the end, she got both at the same time. So I think my prediction came true, sort of. Also, the proof was in the pudding, or more like the book cover, because the book cover is black and gold, so it's very hard to miss. Another prediction of mine that came true was Violet's brother not being dead. Now, I didn't predict this from the start, but I had my suspicion that he might still be alive a couple of chapters towards the end. And I love that Violet uncovers a huge conspiracy at the end of the book and finding out who is the true enemy of the kingdom and her mother involvement in it. The only thing that I didn't like is that towards the end, at the last chapter, Violet is unconscious because she gets stabbed by a poison dagger. So we don't get to hear her usual narration. And Xaden is the one who's narrating. And while I usually like this kind of switcheroo artistically, I didn't love it for his character because Xaden is very secretive. He keeps a lot of things to himself. And once we as the reader get to know his inner thoughts, it kind of takes the mystery out of trying to figure him out. So I think I would have preferred him to stay enigmatic and not know everything that he's thinking of. Now, the book is going to get adapted into a TV series by Amazon, which I'm happy about because trying to cram 498 pages into a movie is a challenge. I know there are some difficulties with adapting this kind of source material into a TV series because of the dragons, because the dragons take a huge central part in the book, and there are a lot of them, as in there are different kinds, there are different colors, and CGI can be very expensive, and the ones in Game of Thrones weren't even featured in every episode, and I think that cost like millions of dollars each time they were in one scene. So I'm sensing they're going to have some issues with that. But I do hope that they will still adapt it into a TV series because I'm really curious to see how they're going to handle this kind of source material, and the story deserves to be fleshed out with no time constraints that you would get in a movie format. Overall, I found this book very enjoyable. I was in it for the ride, pun intended. There are lots of twists and great romance, and I read it in like 4 days, so I highly recommend it, and I hope you enjoyed this review. And I would love to know your thoughts on the book and if you enjoyed it as well. So, bye for now.